Remember Mario Kart Super Circuit? You know, the game that you played on your GBASP on road trips after you didn't want to play Pokemon Emerald for the 5th time? Yeah, that one. Well, you may think back on playing it and say, it was alright. It was Mario Kart, it was something to play, but here's why it was way better than you remember. Released in 2001 for the Game Boy Advance, it was the 3rd installment of the Mario Kart series. This variation is known for being the first handheld Mario Kart, as well as being the last one to have flat tracks. But also, many would say it's the most forgotten one. Most of the time when people think about Mario Kart, it's usually 8 Deluxe, Wii, N64, or basically anyone but Super Circuit. But the question is, does it deserve this? Is Mario Kart Super Circuit just an average game that was merely something decent to play on your car rides when you were a kid? Is it even the worst entry in the series like some say? Well, let's find out. This is Mario Kart Super Circuit. As soon as you load into the game, you have 3 game modes to choose from, being Grand Prix, Time Trials, and Quick Run, which is essentially just a versus mode. Going into any of these modes and picking a CC will bring you to a character roster, which is as basic as it gets, unfortunately. Your standard 8 are all here: Mario, Luigi, Peach, Toad, Yoshi, Donkey Kong, Wario, and Bowser. It sucks that there's not any extra characters to give this game some more identity, but it's understandable considering this was on a handheld from over 20 years ago. After you pick your character, you just pick a track or a Grand Prix and play some Mario Kart. And I have to say, this Mario Kart feels kinda The driving in this version has never been my favorite, not by a long shot. It honestly kind of feels like a mix between the 2 previous games, Super Mario Kart and Mario Kart 64, a bit slippery and just a little frustrating sometimes, especially when you first start playing it. The drifting is fine, I guess, very standard, but once you get the hang of it, it's not too bad. It's just a very standard experience gameplay-wise, which is okay. Super Circuit doesn't bring anything crazy to the table, it's just a solid Mario Kart. But where this game shines is the tracks. If you're not too familiar with this game, you'll probably think, how can the tracks be that good when they're flat like Super Mario Kart? Well, yes, they are flat, but they're not like Super Mario Kart. See, Super Mario Kart had this problem where they repeated a lot of their tracks. For instance, there are 4 Mario Circuits and 4 Bowser's Castles. That's almost half the tracks right there. Super Circuit mostly fixes this problem by coming up with more track ideas, which really helps to keep things fresh. Now yes, there is 4 Bowser Castles in this game, but those are the only repeats, unlike Super Mario Kart. Starting in the Mushroom Cup, we have Peach Circuit, which is of course the first track in the game, so it's just basic and just okay. There's not much going on here, but a decent starter track. Shy Guy Beach is obviously a beach track. If you regularly watch my videos, you'll know that I'm a big fan of this one, and it's actually my most underrated track in this game. I love beach courses, and this one has Shy Guy pirates launching bombs at you. I mean, come on, that's pretty cool. Riverside Park is one of the best tracks. You might know it from the latest Booster Course Pass wave, but it's still a cool course in Super Circuit. The layout is good, of course there's a river, and also a nice jungle background with music to match. And the first of the 4 Bowser's Castles, this one is very basic and very short. You can finish it in under a minute on 150cc. It's not bad per se, but nothing special. The Flower Cup has the only version of Mario Circuit, which is more known at this point from the remake in 8, which is way better of course. Really it's about the same as Peach Circuit, it's just fine. Boo Lake is a solid ghost course with a mansion and some purple trees in the background. I like how there are boos holding candles everywhere. However, despite the name, there is no lake, so that's kind of annoying. Cheeseland is a fan favorite, and for good reason. I mean, you're driving on cheese. Even if you're lactose intolerant, you gotta admit that's pretty cool. There's also mice walking around everywhere just in case you forgot you're racing on cheese. And the song is very underrated as well. The second Bowser Castle is a little longer and a little more interesting than the first. There's a few more jumps and some steel wire to drive on. Overall it's pretty standard, but at least less boring than the last one. So the Lightning Cup actually comes 3rd instead of the Star Cup in this game, and it starts with the Luigi Circuit, which is another pretty basic circuit course, but this time it's raining. The rain also creates puddles on the track that will make you spin out if you hit them. It's not a game changer or anything, but it's at least something slightly different that makes Luigi Circuit stand out from Peach and Mario Circuit. Sky Garden is considered by many to actually be the best course in this whole game, and I'd have no objection to that. The road looks great, the layout is fun with some satisfying shortcuts. and it has arguably the best song in the game. I don't know if I would necessarily put it at number 1 on my list, but it would definitely be up there. Cheep Cheep Island is an underrated one, since it has not been remade, and I never really hear it get talked about much. It's actually one of my favorites, since I do love beach tracks. There's a beautiful sunset, huge Cheep Cheeps jumping in the background, and a lot of piers to drive on. Now granted, driving on those piers makes your screen shake, so it's not near as good as it could be, but still a solid track. The last track in the Lightning Cup is Sunset Wilds, and man, what a great track. You're in a desert at sunset, and the sun actually goes down more and more throughout the race. So by the time the race is over, it's become nighttime. Also, there's tents in the middle of the road in one section, and if you hit one, you'll have a Shy Guy attached to your back. It's a great idea for a track, and it was executed beautifully as well. Maybe the best track in the whole game in my opinion. The Star Cup starts with the worst track in the game, Snowland. If you watched my worst track in every game video, you'll know exactly why. Or you know if you just watch the gameplay and see the freaking earthquake on the screen. It's the only track in the game and the series that violently shakes the screen while you race, and it's awful. It's a shame because it's actually a really solid track with a good song, but it's completely ruined by that. Ribbon Road is another fan favorite, although this one is probably more known for its remake in 8. This one makes me think of Christmas with all the presents. It's a fun course due to the many jumps and boost pads, and the music is great as well. No, it's not as good as its remake, but the original is still great. Despite the name, I am not a big fan of Yoshi Desert. It's just a very basic desert track, and desert tracks are already not great as a whole. There's some decent jumps here and there, I guess, but the really only redeeming quality is the Yoshi Sphinx in the background, which is also the only indicator that this desert has anything to do with Yoshi. Bowser Castle 3 is probably the best of the 4. I know it very well from playing Mario Kart Wii, and it's a pretty good track. The layout flows well, I like that section with all the jumps, and the thwomps are in good places where they're still an obstacle but not frustrating. Obviously still not as good as 3D Bowser Castles, but still a good one. And finally we have the Special Cup that starts with Lakeside Park. And if you're not familiar with this game, you may think, didn't I already play this? But that was Lakeside Park's evil twin brother, Riverside Park. The only big difference here is that Lakeside has volcanoes that are constantly raining lava balls onto the track. This is overall just harder than Riverside, but that's expected considering Riverside is in the Mushroom Cup and Lakeside is in the Special Cup, but they're both enjoyable tracks. And speaking of twin brothers, next we have Boo Lakes in Broken Pier. Of course it's very similar to Boo Lake, but the background and layout is a bit different. Personally, I like Boo Lake better, but it's really just preference. Both are decent courses. Next is the last of the 10,000 Bowser Castles. This one is probably hardest, which makes sense. There's a lot of obstacles and turns and a good bit of lava. I much prefer the third one over this one, but the fourth is no slouch either, and I think it has the right amount of difficulty for a Special Cup course. And last but certainly not least is Rainbow Road. I recently ranked all the Rainbow Roads, so I won't go super in depth here, but Super Circuit's version is very solid. Despite it being flat, it's actually pretty fun, mostly due to the jump pads on the edges of the road. These allow for some fun shortcuts and some hilarious deaths too. I also love the look of this road as well. My only complaint really would be the music. It's not bad, but it's definitely the worst Rainbow Road theme in my opinion. And that's all the Nitro tracks. Despite all the Bowser Castles, there's a lot of good themes and ideas here. Plus you probably also noticed that there are 5 Nitro Cups instead of the usual 4, which means there are 20 Nitros instead of the usual 16. But that's actually only half the tracks in this game, because you can also unlock all 20 tracks from Super Mario Kart, making Super Circuit the first game to have retros. So even though Super Mario Kart has a ton of repeats and very basic themes, that's still 20 extra tracks to race on and a total of 40, which is pretty insane if you think about it. Mario Kart Super Circuit is probably the least talked about game in this series. It's mostly known for just being the first handheld Mario Kart, but it's actually a lot more than that. Not only does it have charming visuals and music, but it has some very underrated tracks and track themes, which are thankfully getting some love from the Booster Course Pass. Sure, this is a pretty basic Mario Kart. There's only 8 characters, you can't choose different karts, and the gameplay is nothing special. But I think the uniqueness of this game makes up for it. So no, it's not the best Mario Kart, probably not even top 5, but it deserves more respect and is definitely better than you remember. Hey guys, thanks so much for watching this retrospective on Mario Kart Super Circuit. Let me know what you thought in the comments and if you think it's really underrated or not. whatnot. I'd like to thank all of you for your support recently, as I now have been accepted into the YouTube Partner Program, which is pretty mind-blowing to me considering I started this channel from literally nothing just a year and a half ago. But it's super exciting and I couldn't have done it without you guys. If you'd like to support the channel, you can of course subscribe and like the video, and you can also become a channel member for as low as $3 a month. There's perks with each membership, and every member regardless of tier will get a shout out in every video, as well as anyone who donates through a super thanks, which can be done by clicking the thanks button under the video. Thanks again for watching and have a great day everyone.